One of their biggest concerns is censorship and not being able to actually be monetized or get their content out there. So what would you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a great topic. There has been cases where people have been shadow bound, maybe not for Christianity, maybe for conservative values. There's no doubt about it that Google owning YouTube and maybe social media in general kind of leans liberal. And so and there's no doubt about it that Judeo-Christian values are under attack, period. And so depending on who is pulling the levers of these different media platforms and whatnot, it's a very relevant issue. So I wrote down, I think, 5 tips for handling controversial topics. It's a legitimate concern. I don't think the conclusion is ignore YouTube entirely, because YouTube, you can go to Rumble, but there's also not even a fraction of the people there. So our belief and conviction based on data is that if you want to get your mission out, your message out there, you want to build your business, you want to build a creator business, YouTube is the absolute undefeated best platform to do so. That doesn't mean it's without problems. And it doesn't mean if you pick a particular content format that you might get demonetized, that you might get a community guideline strike, that you might get your channel deleted, or you might get, because there are stories of that. I sometimes think that the stories of that are maybe somewhat exaggerated because you kind of get what you're looking for. I'm not saying they're false. They're true, but you hear a story and you're like, oh my gosh, censorship is so strong and we need to be fighting these battles, and I'm great for those on the front lines of doing it. But have you looked at and also found examples of people who are hitting really controversial topics and not getting demonetized and not getting their channels deleted? I think what comes to mind is like Patrick Bet-David at Valuetainment. Maybe nobody doing it better than him. And maybe one reason is because he's willing to have debate, free speech at a table, at a podcast, and talk to people from both sides and people of different beliefs. And he is a Christian and once also has sat down and had religious debates and has hit highly controversial issues on gender and all this kind of stuff that is happening in culture right now. So again, for all those that maybe feel like they're getting shadow banned, I just would caution people that sometimes you maybe aren't getting shadow banned. Your content just isn't that good. You might not be getting shadow banned. Everyone's views are down a little bit across and we go so quickly maybe to a conspiracy mindset and some of that. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying maybe truth and wisdom is a little bit in the middle. But here's 5 thoughts about how to deal with it. I think number 1 is to actually read YouTube's policies. You can look them up, Google them. A lot of people haven't done that. And people are like upset if they overtly break a YouTube policy that is pre-stated. I know the objection is, yeah, but it's so vague. I mean, are we talking about the US Constitution? Our rights are under attack. Free speech is under attack. Okay, but YouTube also has policies. So they're their own platform. So you should read them. Number 2 is use disclaimers. I think that you could put a disclaimer in your description or a disclaimer in your video. And the general disclaimer you could look up for, just go to ChatGPT and type in, can you write for me a disclaimer for talking about controversial topics in my YouTube videos, and see what it spits out, and use something like that's not going to be necessarily legal. You could try, but it's going to help. But here's the gist of it. This content is intended for educational purposes only. Because one of the things that is happening, right, is we're labeling things hate speech. Okay, I don't agree with most of that, right? I think we should have freedom of speech. But if it's educational content, you might say there's this belief and there's that belief. Like for me, I'm a Bible guy. I'm a Bible is inspired guy, and the Bible is the blueprint for our company. So, but the Bible is my worldview, and people would say that there's hate speech in the Bible. I disagree. I could see it, but I respect that it's interpreted that way. And I also am happy to sit at the table, not saying that we both agree that the Bible is going to be our measure. So let's debate, let's talk. Here's the point. This is for educational purposes. And so, number 1, that could be your disclaimer. And it may be text on the screen, or it may be something you say, and it may be in your description. So number 1, understand YouTube's policies. Number 2, use disclaimers. Number 3, focus on education, not provocation. So not only do the disclaimer, but sometimes people are so mad that a video triggered, or maybe they're not mad at triggered people, but they're mad at it's now demonetized, when you're like, what are you, obviously you're on such an attack. And I get that you're passionate about your beliefs, but you're not really, back to the shrewd thing, wisdom, intelligence, find ways to give your witness in a way that does not bring unnecessary persecution. Some people are out here like just going crazy, like almost like trying to get persecuted. And then they're acting surprised when it happens. I think that that's also the end of the day. I mean, you should do what you're convicted to, but if you get kicked off of somewhere, if you get kicked out of a college campus because you're loudly shouting and preaching, I'm glad you did that. That's cool you did that. It's also their right to kick you out. You're on the front lines of that conflict. But if you're in provocation, don't be surprised when people are provoked, you know? And so saying that, I think there's something about wisdom that education is greater than confrontational and sensational content. I get the power of a controversial title or thumbnail. I see how that could work. But back to, and I really see Patrick Bet-David doing this. Again, he's hitting all of the hot button issues, but here's also how he's doing it with research. He's got a research team now, hours of research, presenting both views, presenting facts. There's a lot of, it's like culture right now is like a game of telephone where you whisper something in one ear and they whisper it to the next person. The news that we're getting about Israel and Palestine, the news that we're getting about pandemics, the news that we're getting, it's also mixed, and people read headlines and things aren't verified. And I'm kind of like I lean conservative, probably more independent, but I'm an equal opportunity person. There's messed up people on both sides. People are taking things to the extreme on both sides. And I think that we're out here blasting our opinions and we haven't done our due diligence. We haven't done our research. And that might be one reason why he's hitting controversial topics effectively and getting tons of reach and not getting throttled. And we don't know what the future holds and not getting demonetized. I know some conservative outlets like Daily Wire has had like whole batches of videos demonetized. And just as one side quest before we hit the other points, I also think like if that's our greatest fear, especially if you're coming from a Christian standpoint, I think that if you feel the conviction that God has called you to preach, where there is vision, there will be provision. And that doesn't mean YouTube is your source. God is your source. So also, who cares if a video gets demonetized? I know if your whole channel and it could affect your business, and I'm there with you, but there's other ways to monetize. There's people that are rallying support through Patreon because people are so on mission with you. There's people that are, you could have your own products and service or merch or different things you do. Like, how about you take the responsibility of being like, I can't believe I have this free platform. We should know. This free platform where I am allowed to, speak and proclaim and the videos are spreading. There was that recent shift too, where YouTube changed and they said they're going to stop flagging, I think the election misinformation kind of stuff. And there's opinions on both sides. And they said, okay, maybe we had a little bit of an overreach. They backed off of that. YouTube's not perfect, but I think we should think about this. Like, YouTube is free. It's their platform. And if you look around at how many Christian voices, conservative voices, whatever voices, look at how much reach they're all getting. It's pretty cool what's happening. There might be stuff happening in the middle there, but if you're focused, if you really are wise and having your education. And so again, if you could keep getting the reach, but you get demonetized, find a way to fund the mission and trust that also God will give you wisdom of how to do that. Okay, number 4, avoid hate speech and misinformation. Kind of stacks. Avoid hate speech. Please don't quiet down on real truth. Like, don't avoid saying, if people are offended by truth, you should you don't bend the truth. However, it goes back to the style of doing it. And so keep proclaiming truth. And if someone just calls something hate speech, it doesn't mean that it is. But I think you can get my gist. Avoiding it is smart. And avoid misinformation. Like, and ultimately, I think that reduces our credibility. The mainstream media has been caught for this. If you make a mistake, correct it. Because so often, too, what will happen is misinformation will happen, and we never even go back. It's just constant, all kinds of smoke and mirrors out here. Hold your brand to integrity. Do your due diligence. But then number 5, and this might be one of the most important, diversify your platforms. I think that YouTube still should be in the home base. And I think one of the great examples, if we're talking to Christian content creators and looking at conservative voices, is JP Sears. So JP Sears, probably everybody watching this maybe at some time has seen him. Redhead, long hair, hilarious, really comedian and stand-up comedian that makes all kinds of different videos about different topics. They're very witty. They're very wise. And it's an interesting talk about a way to get truth out but when you put it in the wrapper of comedy, which comedy is one of the greatest vehicles, because by the way, on both sides, when people get outrageously offended by the opening joke of whatever comedian, I think they forgot the context of the room. It is a joke, and it's meant to push your buttons, and the context of the room is a free speech context. It's literally a comedian. And so I would go on both sides. Like, while it might offend my values, I'm not offended that you chose to go to see a comedian. And Dave Chappelle, I think, is a great example of this. I think he's, Bill Burr, great example. Are you familiar with Bill Burr?
Mm-mm.
I think he kind of has the accent. He kind of has the whole thing. This will be, I'll just go there. One of his jokes was like, people are all bent out of shape about when does life start. And he was talking about the abortion issue. And he was like, man, I think people are, I think you should have freedom to do this. And people are getting so out of shape, and conservatives are getting bland. And he's going, and people are kind of like, yeah. And he goes, but also, we also have to just know that you are killing a baby. And that's what you're doing. And now everyone's triggered. Like, both sides are triggered. Everyone's mad. And he's just, speaking truth. People are still going to probably disagree with them. But he's literally, the best comedians are going to find those polarizing hard issues, find those things, and get people talking and get people. So to that point, thinking about JP Sears, he's using this comedy as a wrapper, as a vehicle, and he is crushing it and getting massive reach on YouTube, but he's also building his email list. Every Christian content creator should be building an email list. That means that's the only thing you're going to own. A text message list might be similar. A Discord group or a Facebook group, although you're still on Facebook, you're on somebody else's platform. But when you have someone's own contact information, should something happen with the algorithm, even if you don't get canceled, you just have a direct connection. Distribution to your subscribers might be different. At least you've got emails. He's also streaming on Rumble. So is Dave Ramsey. They are streaming on Rumble. They're streaming on YouTube. They're streaming on multi-platform. If you actually think in a media world, should you have the resources to do so, someone's like, should I be on Twitch also? Should I be on this new platform? And my ultimate answer would be like, well, if you can pull it off, why wouldn't you be everywhere? We also, YouTube's home base. You got to get your YouTube game right. But we post 60 TikToks a month, 60 across 2 TikTok accounts. We post 350 pieces of content. Facebook Reels, we're into Instagram Reels. I actually want to get our Rumble started. It's more of a resources and time and energy and thinking about it. So diversify your platforms. And I think another example is Ruslan KD. And so Ruslan's a friend. And some of the things that they'll do in their videos is they'll edit out words that'll trigger the algorithm. They also will have certain content that is on YouTube, and then he's got his Patreon where there's full-length conversations. Daily Wire has certain content that is in their videos, but then they've got Daily Wire Plus where conversations could go deeper. And by the way, so there's also many liberal YouTube channels that are doing the same thing. So we can see this model out there. I hope all these principles are clear and helpful. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think you should be on YouTube and understand the policies and use disclaimers to focus on education and not provocation, and avoid hate speech. But of course, stand for truth and don't cave or bend. Have a backbone and follow the call, especially the mission and message God has called you to. Certainly, though, avoid misinformation and do your due diligence, but diversify your platforms. And I think what all these accounts are also saying, look how much reach they're getting on YouTube. So Daily Wire could say, I don't think they are, but they could say, oh man, YouTube demonetized us, or we're frustrated or whatever. But how many Daily Wire Plus users have purchased that membership because of the free reach that YouTube has given them?
Yeah.
So the perspective to have, I try to stay neutral. I want to fight for free speech and I want to be in that, and that's where I'm going to lean. But I just want to have gratitude. I'm like, it's YouTube's choice to do this or that. If one video gets shut down, that's frustrating. 5 others didn't. Keep going, keep learning, keep pivoting. Keep diversifying your platform. Keep understanding YouTube. Put parts of conversations that could be on YouTube that maybe take it to another level, and then continue the conversation somewhere else. Give people access to things Very controversial figure, Alex Jones in Wars has been known to be canceled everywhere, kind of across platforms. And so he's set up other websites and set up other things, and still has got people following him. We've mentioned, maybe many names which people have opinions about, but what has he done? Diversifies his platform. And you could be like mad you're canceled now, but what about the 5-10 years that YouTube gave you a bunch of reach? I think some people's fear as we land the plane is like, what if I build my YouTube channel out, but I know that I want to be in politics. I want to be talking about the hardest things in the Bible to talk about. I want to be doing this. And what if someday my channel gets deleted or shut down? Oh, okay, legitimate fear. And that would be deeply frustrating. Tip number 1, back up your content, maybe post it other places. Tip number 2, but what if you just don't use it at all and don't get the reach for the next 2, 3, 6, 7, 13 years before things get so crazy? That would be awful if it got deleted. But would you completely throw the baby out with the bathwater and forget that maybe it built your brand? I don't really actually know that much about InfoWars, but how much, again, free traffic and impact and reach did they get before getting shut down? And how much money did they make, and how could they use that money to reinvest and expand? There's no doubt about it. That's why you shouldn't ignore YouTube, because there's 2.7 billion monthly active users. The algorithm, it's amazing. And so, yes, of course, you could be wise. You never know what's going to happen in the future, but why not crush it over the next 1 to 5 years and get some market share and get some awareness for your brand and do all of that? We can't live in fear, and we want to be wise. And if you've diversified your platform, even though that might be a sad day that your thing stopped working there, it could be the very vehicle that got you to the success that launched you to the next level. So those are a few thoughts on controversial topics. If you enjoyed this podcast and are ready for some deep dive YouTube strategy, just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to my 1-hour on-demand YouTube strategy class. You'll be looking over my shoulder as I share my best tips, and you can watch it on demand right now at thinkmasterclass.com.